Hi again guys, and welcome to another review of a specific road-going variant of a motorsport-based vehicle, be it road or rally, in the world of Gran Turismo Sport. And this time we're going back a few weeks, probably actually a bit more than that now, maybe over a month or so, to one of the slightly older road-going variants, but not of a Group 3 car. This is one of two, at least at the time of releasing this video, road-going variants of a rally car on Gran Turismo Sport, because all of the others, the Mustang, the Corvette, etc., they're all Group 3 road cars, which is an obvious choice, those homologated GT3 style machines, but these ones, in particular the Impreza and the Evo, aren't necessarily quite as obvious. Now, from the car's personal history, it is obvious. Of course, if you're going to make a road-going version, you would want it to be closer to the rally versions, because that's what the Evo and the Impreza are predominantly known for, even though they are great for circuit racing as well. However, it is interesting that these cars have both road and rally variants, and then as well Group 3 circuit racing variants, and yet they chose to have the Group B road car instead of a Group 3 road car. In essence, the main difference being that these retain all-wheel drive, whereas the road-going Group 3 cars, of course, aren't rear-wheel drive, because neither are the racing versions. That's an interesting choice, and I am interested to see, because of course we have loads of road cars probably that we haven't even seen yet from the mileage exchange. I'm interested to see whether or not we will have the racing ones as well, or if for the Evo and the Impreza, and perhaps a couple of others, you never know, we will only get a rally variant. Because there is one car in particular that does make me wonder if we will get both, and that's the Peugeot RCZ. Because if you think about it, we have the normal Peugeot RCZ, just the production spec, then though, we have both the Group B and Group 3 cars. We also have a Group 4, but that's kind of irrelevant. But so far, look at what they've done. They chose to give us a Group 3 road version, not the rally car, and yet for the Evo and the Impreza, they gave us the rally car, even though there is also a Group 3 variant of both of them. So that's got me wondering as to whether or not there might be both. We might get a Group 3 Evo road car and a Group 3 Impreza road car, as well as just the rally car, and likewise for the Peugeot RCZ, will we potentially get a Group B Peugeot RCZ road car? Now, maybe we won't, but maybe we will. And that'd be interesting to see if we do, because the distinct advantages of a Group B road car instead of a Group 3 are significant. As I already mentioned earlier, you've got all-wheel drive, which in itself makes a massive difference, especially to less experienced drivers who are maybe just coming into the game. They want to pick up something, for instance, that's fast but not overly challenging. These are great for that, because they're cheaper than buying some multiple $100,000 supercar, but at the same time they can often tussle with supercars around the track, even though the power is much, much lower. Now, speaking of that power, this Impreza actually puts out a little bit more power than I may have personally expected from a road-going variant of it, 473 horsepower, which is a really nice, healthy level to be working with. It's also got a very impressive 400 pound-feet of torque. Those in themselves, in any Impreza, would make it a great track car. That would be similar to something like the Litchfield Type 25, for instance, which is based on the Kidney Grill Impreza and has around 400 horsepower. It's a great performance car. This one has even more power. Now, the weight isn't amazingly good, and that's pretty much the only drawback in terms of spec that the car initially has. It weighs 1,425 kilos, which isn't awful, but it sounds a little bit heavier to me than I would have expected from a road-going Group B car, especially given Group B is kind of a notorious category of rallying, and even though this is of course a fictionalized modern interpretation of it, it would have still been interesting to actually pay more of an homage to those road-going Group B cars, which were typically quite lightweight. And of course the rally cars even more so, some of them dangerously lightweight in fact. Now, the horsepower per tonne is still 332, so it's very well placed against stuff like the Mustangs and the Corvettes and the Alfa 4C. So with Similar specs across the board, some give or take, but with all-wheel drive. What kind of difference does that actually make around the track? Well, a while back, when people started requesting that I do a review for the Evo, this car's direct rival, they mentioned that that Evo in particular was OP. Even more so, they thought, than the Group 3 road cars, because of that all-wheel drive. And as soon as you step into this or the Evo, you can immediately see why. It just has not necessarily as much grip as you might assume, but just an all-round package which makes it very easy to drive fast. Now, of course, all of these road-going variants can give you great lap times. They're extremely competitive. A lot of people don't like them. It's become actually one of the most controversial classes in the history of the Gran Turismo franchise, and also it's become that controversial very quickly. People very quickly started complaining about how good they were. That doesn't usually happen quite that quickly. For instance, on Gran Turismo 6, loads of lobbies won't even let you use a Chaparral 2J. And yet in the beginning of the game, even though people already knew what it could do from GT4 and GT5, that wasn't the case. It took a while for people to start clamping down on allowing cars like that, or the RX 500, or the Dome Zero, or a variety of others, the Ford Focus RS. This one has happened much quicker. All of these Group B and Group 3 road cars are very controversial in terms of whether or not they should be allowed into those same street classes, basically. Now, ultimately, technically, it is fair, because they are street cars, so by definition they should be allowed. But at the same time, it is very obvious and true to say that they are OP. They are motorsport vehicles for the road. But from that point of view, is that really all that different to a CLK GTR, or a 911 GT1, or an Elise GT1, or even something like a Lancia Delta S4 Stradale, which was literally a road-going version of a Group B car, that homologated vehicle? And the difference is, they're real. They actually were made. These are just fictional cars. And the specs on those models often are far better than, say, this Impreza or the Evo. So from that point of view, it's actually not that far outside the realm of possibility that a car like this should be allowed to compete. Because if you consider it, a CLK GTR is technically just a road car, it's a supercar. But if you put the CLK GTR, for instance, up against most other supercars around a track, it would destroy them, because it's literally a race car for the road. Is it OP? Yes, by definition. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it shouldn't be allowed. So from that point of view, these cars will always be controversial. But at the same time, I personally support using them, even though I wouldn't necessarily go to one of them myself. I'd prefer something else, but not because I consider it to be OP, but just because I prefer other cars in general. However, if you do decide to use these, there is one word of caution that I would say, and that is that the handling can be a little bit flighty. But beyond that, they're great performance cars. But that's it for this pick overall. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.